Let me put just the tip, please.
The sound that escaped his lips was barely human. It started somewhere deep in his chest, that place where hope goes to die slowly, where desperation ferments into something toxic. The kind of sound a man makes when he's been hollowed out from the inside and doesn't know how to ask for help without sounding weak. Please. Just one word, but it carried the weight of 8 years. 8 years of sleeping in separate rooms. 8 years of conversations that felt like business negotiations. 8 years of being touched like he was a necessary evil, something to be endured rather than desired. Just one more time. Let me, his voice cracked. He hated that, hated showing weakness. But here, in the darkness of their bedroom, with only the Seoul city lights bearing witness through floor-to-ceiling windows, he couldn't maintain the mask anymore. Let me hold you, that's all. I just want to remember what it feels like. The woman in the bed didn't move. She was beautiful. He'd married her for that beauty, among other reasons that seemed hollow now. Sharp cheekbones, flawless skin, the kind of elegance that looked effortless but required hours of maintenance. Cold elegance. The kind that looked perfect in photographs, but felt like ice against skin. No. That single syllable landed like a blade between his ribs. Please, I'm your husband. You're a means to an end. She didn't even turn to look at him, just kept staring at her phone, the blue light casting shadows across her face that made her look almost alien. My father's retirement plan. Don't confuse legal documentation with intimacy. He closed his eyes, counted his heartbeats, wondered when he'd become the kind of man who begged for scraps of affection from someone who looked at him like he was furniture. Expensive furniture, but furniture nonetheless. The bedroom door stood slightly ajar. He'd left it that way out of some pathetic hope that she'd feel vulnerable, exposed, would finally lower her walls if she thought someone might hear. She hadn't. If anything, she seemed to relish his humiliation more knowing it had an audience. Not that there was an audience. It was 2:47 a.m. The house was silent except for the soft hum of central air and the distant sound of Seoul traffic. Or so he thought. In the hallway, Alice Akefer had stopped breathing. Her hand gripped the mop handle so tightly her knuckles ached. Her cleaning cart stood abandoned 3 feet behind her, forgotten the moment that sound, that broken, desperate pleas, had drifted through the cracked bedroom door. She should move, should back away silently, pretend she'd heard nothing, go clean a different floor. She should do a lot of things. Instead, she stood frozen, listening to a man she'd never met fall apart behind expensive wood and imported silk. Get out! The woman's voice was cold, clinical, like she was dismissing a subordinate rather than rejecting a husband. I have a call in 15 minutes. Milan, the spring line launch, actually important things. Silence. Then footsteps, heavy, defeated. Alice's heart kicked against her ribs. The door was opening. She should run, but her body wouldn't cooperate, wouldn't move, wouldn't do anything except stand there like an idiot while. He emerged. And time did something strange. Slowed down, sped up, folded in on itself like paper. He was younger than she'd expected. Maybe 33, 34. Handsome in that devastating way that came with sharp jawlines and eyes that had seen too much. His hair was disheveled, falling across his forehead. His expensive pajama pants hung low on his hips. His chest was bare, revealing the edge of tattoos that disappeared around his shoulders and down his back. Dragons, phoenixes, characters she couldn't read from this distance. But it was his face that stopped her. The expression of a man who just lost something he didn't know he still had. Raw, devastated, utterly human. Their eyes met. For 3 seconds, neither moved. She watched understanding dawn in his eyes, understanding that she'd heard everything, that she'd witnessed his private collapse, that she now held the power to humiliate him beyond repair with a few well-placed words to the house staff. She watched him calculate whether he should fire her, threaten her, or simply pretend this never happened. She watched him realize she wasn't afraid. That last part seemed to confuse him most. His voice was rough, scraped raw. "How long have you been standing there?" Alice's mouth was dry. "Long enough, sir." Not a lie, not quite the truth. Somewhere in between, like most things in her life lately. "I see." He took a step forward. She didn't step back. Something flickered in his eyes, surprise, curiosity. "And you are?" Alice Ockeffer. I clean the 3rd floor, Tuesday through Friday, midnight to dawn." 4 months you've been doing this?" "Yes, sir." 4 months. He laughed, but it held no humor, just bitterness and self-recrimination. 4 months and I never noticed you. "Because you were too busy dying inside your own life," she thought but didn't say. Instead, most people don't notice cleaners. We're designed to be invisible. Invisible. He repeated the word like it meant something different in his mouth, like it carried weight beyond definition. "Is that what you are? Invisible?" Before she could answer, a voice called from the bedroom, sharp, annoyed. "Are you having a conversation with the help? Really? How desperate have you become?" Something shifted in his expression. The raw vulnerability disappeared, replaced by cold control, the mask sliding back into place. But his eyes still held that devastation. "Go," he said quietly to Alice, "before I do something we'll both regret." She should have obeyed, should have grabbed her cart and disappeared into the service corridors like smoke. Instead, she heard herself whisper, "She's wrong, you know." He went very still. "What?" "Whatever she said about you, whatever she's made you believe about yourself." Alice held his gaze, even though every survival instinct screamed at her to look away. "She's wrong." For a moment, he looked like she'd struck him. Then his jaw clenched. "You don't know anything about me." "I know enough." "You know nothing." Anger now creeping into his voice. Anger was safer than vulnerability, easier to manage. "I could end your employment with a word, have you deported before sunrise. You understand that?" "Yes." "Then why are you still standing here?" Good question. Alice didn't have a good answer. Or rather, she had several answers, none of which she could voice. "Because I've been waiting 4 months for you to notice me. Because everything I've done has led to this moment. Because you're not the monster I expected, and that complicates everything. Because someone should tell you the truth," she said finally, "even if it costs them everything." He stared at her like she was speaking a language he'd forgotten existed. Then he turned and walked away, disappearing down the corridor without another word. Alice stood there, heart hammering, hands shaking, wondering if she'd just destroyed 4 months of careful planning. Or if she'd done exactly what needed to be done. The sun rose over Seoul like a wound opening. He hadn't slept, had spent the hours between 3 a.m. and dawn standing in his private office, staring at security footage, making calls to people who asked no questions and solved problems efficiently. Routine maintenance, standard Tuesday business. A shipment that needed rerouting. A politician who needed reminding about their arrangement. A rival family making noise about territory. All of it felt hollow. Meaningless. He kept thinking about those words. "She's wrong about you." Kept wondering what Alice Ockeffer saw when she looked at him. Wondering if maybe she saw something he'd forgotten existed. "Sir," his assistant, a terrified young man named Yi Sung, appeared in the doorway. "Your 9 a.m. is here, the textile manufacturers from Busan." "Cancel it." "Sir, this meeting has been scheduled for." "Cancel it." He didn't raise his voice, didn't need to. "Clear my morning, I have research to do." Yi Sung bowed and fled. Alone again, he pulled up the personnel files on his private server. Scrolled until he found her. Alice Ockeffer, 26 years old, Nigerian citizen, student visa. A photograph stared back at him. Professional, taken for her work ID. But even in the harsh lighting and neutral expression, she was striking. Dark skin that seemed to glow from within. Eyes that held secrets. Full lips pressed together like she was physically restraining words. He read through her file 3 times. Standard immigrant story. Parents deceased. Enrolled in Seoul National University for language studies. Clean background check. No criminal record, no red flags, no reason for concern. Too clean. He'd been in this business long enough to recognize a manufactured identity when he saw one. Real people had messy histories, traffic tickets, social media presence, credit card debt. Real people left digital footprints everywhere they went. Alice Aquifer had no footprints. She existed on paper, but nowhere else. Which meant either she was exactly who she claimed, an orphan starting fresh in a foreign country, or she was someone else entirely. He picked up his phone, dialed a number he rarely used. "It's me. I need deep background on someone. Everything you can find, and I mean everything. Financial records, travel history, associates, anything that doesn't appear in official documents." He rattled off her details. The voice on the other end, rough, Russian-accented, chuckled. "This is personal." "Does it matter?" "It matters to my price. Double your usual rate. I want answers by tonight." "You'll have them." He ended the call and returned to staring at her photograph. "Who are you, Alice Aquifer? And why does it feel like you've been waiting for me to notice you?" 3 floors above, in a bedroom that cost more than most people earned in 5 years, his wife stared at her reflection in a full-length mirror. Perfect skin, perfect hair, perfect mask. Empty eyes. Her phone buzzed with a message. "Tonight, same place. 7 p.m., don't be late." She typed back, "Have I ever been late?" "No, you're the most punctual affair I've ever had." She smiled at that. A real smile, not the practiced one she wore for cameras and charity galas. "Is that a compliment?" "It's an observation. You treat infidelity like a business meeting." "Isn't that what it is? A transaction. You get what you need, I get what I need, everyone's satisfied." The response took longer this time. "Is that really all this is to you?" She stared at the message for a long time before responding. What else could it be? Love, maybe, or something close to it. Her chest tightened, an unfamiliar sensation. She'd worked very hard to forget what that felt like. Love is a liability. We agreed on that. We agreed on a lot of things. Doesn't mean I believed all of them. She deleted the entire conversation. Habit now. Then opened a different messaging app, one buried deep in her phone, disguised as a weather tracker. Sent a message to a different number. The cleaner spoke to him last night. He's investigating her. The response came immediately. Good. Let him dig. He won't find what matters. And if he does? He won't. We've been too careful. Focus on your part. 2 more weeks. 2 more weeks, until everything came crashing down. 2 more weeks, until she burned down the empire that had caged her for 8 years. 2 more weeks, until she destroyed the man she'd married. The man she'd once. No, she couldn't think about that. Couldn't remember the person she'd been before grief had carved out her insides and replaced them with ice. Before losing a child had turned her into something cold and calculated and cruel. Before revenge had become the only thing that made her feel alive. She looked at her reflection again, practiced her smile, the one that said everything is fine. The one that had fooled her husband for years. Soon, he'd realize nothing had been fine. Soon, he'd realize she'd been planning his destruction since the day she discovered what he'd done. Soon. But not yet. Alice didn't return to her room in the service wing right away. Instead, she took the service elevator down, past the basement, past the sub-basement, to a level that didn't officially exist on any building plans. The doors opened to reveal a corridor lined with servers, computer equipment, technology that shouldn't exist in what was supposed to be a family residence. A man looked up from a bank of monitors, older, maybe 60, with gray hair and eyes that missed nothing. "You were supposed to avoid contact," he said in English, his accent placing him somewhere between Lagos and London. "He came out of the bedroom while I was there. What was I supposed to do? Run, hide, literally anything except have a conversation with him." Alice pulled off her cleaning gloves, dropped them on a desk. "It's fine, I established presence. He'll investigate me now. That's what I'm afraid of. The man, code name Uncle, though he was no relation, pulled up several screens. He's already made calls, hired someone to deep dive your background. Let them look, everything will check out. On the surface, yes, but if they dig deep enough, they won't find anything because there's nothing to find. Alice Aucaffer exists. She's real. I've been her for so long I barely remember. She stopped, swallowed. I barely remember who I was before. Uncle's expression softened. At ease. Don't. The name felt like broken glass in her chest. That person is dead, has been for 2 years. You can't bury yourself forever. Watch me. Silence settled between them, heavy with things neither wanted to say. Did you learn anything useful? Uncle asked finally. Alice thought about the man in the hallway, about the devastation in his eyes, about the way his voice had cracked when he begged his wife for basic human connection. He's not what I expected. Meaning he's not the monster the files suggested. She struggled for words. He's broken, and she's the one breaking him. Does that change anything? Did it? The mission was clear, had been clear for 4 months. Get close, gather intelligence, find proof, destroy them both. Simple, clean, necessary. Except nothing about last night had felt simple. No, she lied, changes nothing. Uncle didn't look convinced, but he let it go. The wife is meeting someone tonight. Hotel Shilla, private dining room. We've placed cameras, but we can't get audio without risk of detection. Who is she meeting? Still working on identification. Whoever they are, they're careful, very careful. Alice moved to the monitors, watched security footage from various parts of the house. The wife's bedroom, the husband's office, the corridors, the kitchen, the garage. One screen showed the husband, standing in his office, staring at what appeared to be her employee photograph. Even through the grainy security feed, she could see the intensity in his expression. He's going to be a problem, Uncle murmured. Maybe, or maybe he was the solution she hadn't known she needed. How long until the next phase? 3 weeks, assuming everything goes according to plan. And if it doesn't, then a lot of people die, including probably us. Alice nodded. She'd made peace with that possibility months ago. What she hadn't made peace with was the flutter in her chest when the husband had looked at her. The way his vulnerability had cracked something open inside her that was supposed to stay buried. The dangerous, impossible thought that maybe she'd misjudged who the real monster was. I need to get back before they notice I'm gone, she said, heading toward the elevator. Alice, Uncle's voice stopped her. Be careful. With him, men like that, broken men, they're either going to save you or destroy you, and you won't know which until it's too late. I'm not trying to save anyone. I'm trying to survive. Sometimes those are the same thing. The elevator doors closed before she could respond. That evening, the house settled into its usual rhythm. Expensive silence, the kind that came from too much space and too little genuine human connection. He sat in his office, reviewing the preliminary report his investigator had sent. Alice Aucaffer, confirmed Nigerian citizen, university enrollment verified, apartment exists, rent current, no suspicious activity. But buried in the footnotes, subject rarely home, apartment appears staged, no actual living presence despite active lease. He was reading that line for the 5th time when his phone rang. His wife, calling from upstairs even though she could have just walked to his office. That's how they communicated now, through technology, through walls. Yes. I'm going out tonight, dinner with university friends. Lie, he could hear it in her voice, the slight uptick at the end, the too casual delivery. Fine. I'll be late, don't wait up. I never do. She hung up without saying goodbye. He stared at his phone for a long moment. Then he opened a different app, one that tracked a device he'd secretly placed in her purse months ago when suspicion first started creeping in. Watched the dot that represented his wife move through Seoul. Not toward the university district. Toward Gangnam, toward money, toward hotels that catered to people having private meetings they didn't want noticed. He should feel something: anger, betrayal, pain. He felt nothing except mild curiosity about who she was meeting. And underneath that, something darker: relief. If she was having an affair, he could divorce her without guilt, could end this prison masquerading as marriage, could finally be free. His phone buzzed again. Security alert. Motion detected. 3rd floor corridor. Time, 8:47 p.m. Alice. Starting her shift. He stood without thinking, drawn by something he couldn't name. Found himself in the elevator, pressing the button for the 3rd floor. Found himself walking toward the sound of a mop against marble. Found himself standing in the corridor, watching her work. She moved with efficiency. Grace, even, like cleaning floors was an art form she'd perfected. She didn't look up when he approached, but she spoke. "You're watching me." "How did you know I was here?" "Your cologne, expensive, distinctive." She wrung out the mop, still not looking at him. "And you breathe like someone who's forgotten how to relax." "Is that your professional assessment?" "That's my human assessment." Finally, she looked up. Those eyes again, dark and knowing. "What do you want?" "Good question." What did he want? "To understand why you said what you said last night." "Which part?" "The part where you told me my wife was wrong about me." Alice set down her mop, straightened, gave him her full attention. "She told you that you're a means to an end, that you're useful but not lovable, that you're less than human." Her voice was gentle, which somehow made the words hit harder. "Those are lies, and someone needed to tell you that. You don't know me well enough to make that assessment." "Don't I?" She tilted her head slightly. "I know you begged someone for affection. Monsters don't beg. I know you asked instead of demanded. Monsters don't ask. I know you left that door open, hoping vulnerability might create connection. Monsters don't hope." Each observation landed like a precision strike. "So what am I, if not a monster?" "Human." She said it like it was simple, like it explained everything. "Just extraordinarily human, and surrounded by people who have forgotten what that means." He couldn't breathe suddenly, couldn't think past the weight of being seen, actually seen, by someone who had no reason to see him as anything but the devil everyone else did. "Why do you care?" The question came out rougher than intended. Alice was quiet for a long moment. When she finally spoke, her voice carried in weight he couldn't identify. "Because I know what it's like to be invisible, to be treated like you don't matter, to have people look through you instead of at you." She met his eyes. "And because someone who feels that broken, that desperate for connection, that person isn't dangerous. They're dying, and no one deserves to die that slowly." Something in his chest cracked open. Before he could stop himself, before he could think about consequences or complications or the 1,000 reasons this was a terrible idea, he closed the distance between them. Stopped close enough to see flecks of gold in her dark eyes. Close enough to smell her perfume, something subtle and warm that probably came from a drugstore, but somehow smelled better than anything his wife spent thousands on. Close enough to feel her breath catch. "What's your real name?" he asked quietly. Her expression shifted, surprise, then something that looked like fear. "Alice, I told you." "No." He reached up slowly, giving her time to move away, brushed his fingers against her cheek. "Alice is who you pretend to be, but who are you really? And why does it feel like you've been waiting for me to ask that question?" Alice's heart slammed against her ribs. For 2 full seconds, she couldn't speak, couldn't move, could only stare at this man who'd somehow managed to see through 4 months of carefully constructed lies with a single question. "I don't know what you mean," she said finally, adding how her voice wavered. "Yes, you do." His thumb traced along her jawline, gentle but insistent. "I've spent my entire life reading people, knowing when they're lying, when they're hiding something, when they're pretending to be less than they are. And you," he leaned closer, his breath warm against her temple, "you're pretending so hard I can see the cracks." She should step back, should maintain distance, should remember that getting emotionally entangled with this man was exactly what she couldn't afford. Instead, she heard herself whisper, "Maybe I'm just tired of pretending." Then stop. "I can't." "Why not?" Because the truth would destroy everything. Because she'd spent 2 years building toward this moment. Because revealing who she really was meant revealing what she wanted, and what she wanted was revenge against everyone in this house. Including possibly him. Because some truths are dangerous, she said instead. "I'm familiar with dangerous truths. I collect them." His hand dropped from her face, but he didn't step back. "What if I told you I don't care who you really are? What if I said I just want 5 minutes of honest conversation with someone who doesn't look at me like I'm a weapon they're afraid to put down?" The vulnerability in his voice was devastating. Alice felt her carefully constructed walls crack a little more. 5 minutes, she heard herself say. "But not here, not where cameras can see us." His eyebrows rose. "You know about the cameras." "I know about everything in this house, including the things you think are secret." Something flashed in his eyes, surprise, respect, and underneath it, desire. "My office, the real one, 2 levels below the basement. I know where it is." "Of course you do." A ghost of a smile crossed his face. 10 minutes, I need to make a call first." He left without another word. Alice stood in the empty corridor, heart racing, knowing she'd just crossed a line she couldn't uncross. Uncle's voice echoed in her head. "Be careful. Men like that will either save you or destroy you." She pulled out her phone, the burner, and sent a quick message. "Things are accelerating, establishing deeper contact tonight." No response, there never was. But she knew someone was reading, watching, judging whether she was still committed to the mission or if she was becoming compromised. Alice looked at her reflection in the polished marble floor. Saw a stranger staring back. Who am I anymore? The question had no answer. His office felt different tonight. Maybe it was the late hour, nearly 10 p.m. now. Maybe it was the weight of what he was about to do. Maybe it was the realization that he was inviting someone into his most private space, someone who could destroy him with the information contained here. He didn't care. For the first time in years, he felt something other than numbness, and he was willing to risk everything for it. The door opened. Alice stepped inside, no longer wearing her cleaning uniform. She'd changed into jeans and a simple black t-shirt that somehow made her look more herself, more real. Her hair was down now, natural curls framing her face. She was breathtaking. "You changed," he observed. "So did you." She nodded at his casual clothes, black pants, gray sweater. "Guess we're both tired of costumes." He gestured to the leather couch against the wall. "Sit, please." She did, but perched on the edge like she might need to run. He sat across from her in an armchair, not too close, giving her space even though every instinct screamed to close the distance. 5 minutes of honesty, he said. That was the deal. "You first." "Fair enough." He leaned back, studying her in the low light. "My name is Kang Min-jun. I'm 33 years old. I run an empire built on blood and fear, and I hate almost every second of it. I married a woman I didn't love because my father told me it was strategic, and she married me because her father told her the same thing. We've spent 8 years destroying each other slowly, and I can't remember the last time I felt human." He paused. "Your turn." Alice was quiet for so long he thought she might not answer. "Then my name is Adiz Akafer. Alice is. Easier for people here to pronounce. I'm 26. I came to Seoul 4 months ago for reasons I can't fully explain yet. I clean floors and pretend to be invisible because it's safer than being seen. And her voice caught. I haven't felt human in a long time either." "Why did you really come here?" "I told you, I can't." "Can't or won't?" "Both." She met his eyes. "Some answers come with consequences I'm not ready for yet." Min-jun nodded slowly. "Fair enough. Can I ask something else?" "Maybe." "Last night, when you heard me with my wife, what did you really feel?" Alice drew in a breath. When she spoke, Her voice was almost too quiet to hear. Angry, sad, and guilty. Guilty. For listening, for witnessing your private pain. She stopped herself. For what? For judging her, your wife. I don't know her story, don't know what made her so cold. But in that moment, I wanted to tell her she was throwing away something precious. Alice's eyes glistened. And then I felt guilty for that too, because who am I to judge anyone's marriage? I know nothing about love or commitment or any of it. You've never been in love. The question hung between them like smoke. Once, Alice said finally. A long time ago, it ended badly. How badly? The kind of bad you don't recover from, the kind that changes who you are fundamentally. She wiped at her eyes angrily. Why are we talking about this? Because these are the 5 minutes of honesty. Minjun leaned forward. Because I want to know you, the real you, not the invisible cleaner or the perfectly manufactured background story. You investigated me. Of course I did, and found nothing, which means you're very good at hiding. Or maybe there's nothing to hide. We both know that's not true. Silence settled between them, not uncomfortable, just heavy with things neither could say yet. Can I tell you something? Alice asked. Please. When I heard you last night, when I heard the desperation in your voice, she shook her head. I've spent months preparing myself to hate everyone in this house, to see you all as monsters who deserve whatever's coming, but you sounded so broken, so human, and it complicated everything. Minjun's chest tightened. What's coming? She looked away. I've said too much already. Adiz. Don't, she stood abruptly. Don't call me that. Alice is safer. Safer from what? From remembering who I was before. From, her voice broke, from feeling things I can't afford to feel. He stood too, crossing to her slowly. What if I said I'm already feeling things I can't afford to feel? Then we're both in trouble. Good, he reached up, cupping her face with both hands. I've been in trouble my whole life. At least this trouble feels honest. Alice closed her eyes, leaning into his touch like she was starving for it. This is a mistake, she whispered. Probably the best mistake I've ever made. When she opened her eyes, they were filled with tears and desire, and something that looked like grief. If I stay in this room much longer, I'm going to do something that destroys everything I've worked for. Then destroy it, his forehead pressed against hers. Whatever you came here to do, whoever you came here to hurt, destroy it all. Choose something different. Choose. You, she laughed, but it sounded like breaking. I can't choose you. You don't even know what I am. Then tell me. I can't. Won't. Same thing. They stood like that, breathing each other's air, balanced on the knife's edge of something that would change everything. Then Alice's phone buzzed. She pulled back, checking the screen. Her expression shifted, fear, then resignation. I have to go. Alice. Please don't make this harder than it already is. She moved toward the door, then stopped, looked back. For what it's worth, in another life, in another version of this story, I would have chosen you, without hesitation. Then she was gone. Minjun stood in the empty office, still feeling the ghost of her skin against his palms. His own phone buzzed, a text from his investigator. Deeper dive on Alice Ockeffer revealing interesting connections. Call me ASAP. He stared at the message for a long moment, then deleted it without calling back. Some truths, he was realizing, he didn't want to know yet. Not if knowing them meant losing the only real thing he'd felt in years. Alice made it to the sub-basement before the tears came. Uncle looked up from his monitors, took one look at her face, and swore in Igbo. What happened? I'm compromised. She sank into a chair, head in her hands. Completely, utterly compromised. Did he threaten you? Worse, he saw me, actually saw me, and she couldn't finish. Uncle was quiet for a moment. Then, you're falling for him. I can't fall for him. He's the target. He's part of what we're here to destroy. Is he, though? Uncle pulled up several files. I've been digging deeper into his operations. into the family history. These things aren't what we thought. What do you mean? The wife, she's not innocent. In fact, he pulled up a series of photographs. She's been meeting with someone for months, someone who has connections to your father's death. Alice's blood turned to ice. What? I couldn't get clear identification until tonight. But look, he zoomed in on a grainy restaurant photo. A woman, Min Jun's wife, sitting across from a man whose face made Alice's stomach drop. Park Yi-sung, the man who'd ordered the hit on her family 2 years ago. The man who destroyed everything she loved. The man she'd come to Seoul to kill. She's working with him, Alice breathed. More than that, they're planning something big, and I think, Uncle hesitated, I think Kang Min-jun is their target, not their partner. The world tilted. But the files said. The files were planted, a trail to make you think Min-jun was complicit in your father's death, but he wasn't. He didn't even know about the operation until after it happened. Uncle pulled up more documents. His father arranged everything, and when Min-jun found out, he what? He killed his own father, 3 years ago, made it look like a heart attack, but the medical records I hacked suggest poison. Alice couldn't breathe. Why would he do that? Because his father had ordered the death of a politician and his family, including a 3-year-old daughter. When Min-jun found out his father had murdered a child, he snapped. Uncle's expression was grave. He's been trying to dismantle the worst parts of his empire ever since, trying to go legitimate, trying to atone. And his wife. She's the daughter of the politician his father killed. She married him for revenge. She's been planning his destruction for 8 years. The pieces fell into place with sickening clarity. The cold marriage, the affairs, the careful positioning. She wasn't broken by Min-jun. She was breaking him on purpose. Oh God, Alice whispered, he doesn't know. No, and if she succeeds, if Park Yi-sung succeeds, Min-jun dies, and we lose our only real chance at taking down Park's organization. We have to warn him. Can't, not without revealing who we are, not without blowing our cover completely. Alice stood, packing. So what do? We accelerate, move up the timeline, get you close enough to him that you can control the situation when it goes bad. Define get close. Uncle looked uncomfortable. Whatever it takes, he's clearly attracted to you. Use that. Make him trust you completely. Enough that when everything falls apart, he listens to you instead of running or fighting back. You want me to seduce him. I want you to survive. If that means getting him emotionally invested in keeping you alive, then yes. Alice thought about Min-jun's hands on her face, about the vulnerability in his voice, about how he'd looked at her like she was something precious. This is wrong. This is survival. Uncle's voice was hard. He's not the enemy we thought, but he's still the key to everything, and if you can't do what needs to be done. I can. The words came out before she could stop them. I'll do whatever it takes. Even if it destroyed her in the process. 3 days passed. 3 days of Alice avoiding the 3rd floor, of Min-jun trying to catch glimpses of her on security cameras, of both of them circling each other like planets afraid of collision. On the 4th day, Min-jun broke. He found her in the garden, a space most staff avoided because his wife claimed it as her personal sanctuary. Alice was sitting on a stone bench, reading a battered paperback in the late afternoon sun. She looked up as he approached, and something in her expression made his chest ache. You've been avoiding me, he said. You've been watching me on cameras. Tache, he sat beside her, careful to leave space. What are you reading? She held up the book, Things Fall Apart by Chinua Achebe. Required reading in Nigerian schools, she said. I've read it maybe 20 times, still finds new ways to break my heart. What's it about? A man who can't adapt to change, who watches his entire world collapse because he can't let go of who he used to be. She looked at him. It ends badly. Most good stories do. They sat in silence for a moment. The garden was beautiful, carefully maintained roses, cherry blossoms just starting to bloom, stone pathways winding through shaped hedges. A prison designed to look like paradise. "I'm sorry," Alice said quietly, "for running the other night, for being complicated." "We're all complicated. That's what makes us interesting." He studied her profile. "Can I ask you something?" "Maybe. If we met in a different life, no secrets, no complications, no whatever you're running from, would you have given me a chance?" Alice was quiet for so long, he thought she wouldn't answer. "Then, in a different life, I think I would have loved you. Completely, destructively, the kind of love that rewrites who you are." "Why can't you do that in this life?" "Because this life is already written, the ending is set, and there's no room for," she gestured between them, "for whatever this is." "What if we rewrote it?" "You can't rewrite a story that's already in motion." "Watch me." Before she could respond, he cupped her face and kissed her. Not gentle, not tentative. Desperate and claiming, and full of everything he couldn't say with words. Alice made a small sound, surprise or surrender, he couldn't tell, and then she was kissing him back, her hands fisting in his shirt, pulling him closer. She tasted like honey and heartbreak. Like coming home to a place he'd never been. Like the answer to a question he'd been asking his entire life. When they finally broke apart, both breathless, she whispered, "This is a mistake." "You keep saying that." "Because it keeps being true." "I don't care." His thumb traced her bottom lip. "I haven't felt alive in years, and you make me feel like I'm on fire. Whatever the cost, it's worth it." "You don't know what you're saying." "Yes, I do. For once in my life, I know exactly what I'm saying." Alice closed her eyes, and when she opened them, they held such sadness it made him ache. "Your wife is going to hurt you, very badly, very soon." He went still. "How do you know that?" "Because I see things people don't want seen, and she's planning something that ends with you destroyed." "Let her try." His voice was cold now, the devil of soul returning. "I've survived worse than a wife who hates me." "This is different. She has help, powerful help, the kind that..." She stopped herself, but too late. Minjun's eyes narrowed. "What kind of help? Who is she working with?" "I can't tell you that." "Can't or won't?" "Both, because if I tell you, you'll do something reckless, and then everything falls apart before." She stopped again. "Before what?" "Before I can protect you." The confession hung between them like a blade. "You're here to protect me." Minjun's voice was soft, dangerous. "Or you're here for something else entirely." Alice stood abruptly. "I should go." "No." He stood too, catching her wrist gently. "No more runnings. Tell me the truth, all of it. Who are you really? Why are you here? What do you want?" She looked at his hand on her wrist, then at his face. "I want justice for my family. I want revenge for my father. I want to destroy the man who murdered everyone I loved and then dared to continue living like it didn't matter." Her voice cracked. "And I wanted to start with you because I thought you were part of it, but you're not. You're just collateral damage. And now I don't know what to do because I can't hurt you and I can't save you and I can't." Minjun pulled her against his chest, wrapping his arms around her as she finally broke. As sobs tore through her body, 2 years of grief and rage and exhaustion finally spilling over. He held her through it, one hand in her hair, murmuring words he didn't even know he knew. Comfort in Korean and broken English and sounds that weren't quite language but were somehow exactly right. "Your father," he said when she finally quieted. "Tell me about him." Alice pulled back enough to look at him. "Why?" "Because I want to know. Because whoever he was, he raised someone extraordinary. Because..." Minjun hesitated. "Because maybe I can help." "You can't bring him back." "No, but I might be able to give you justice." She studied his face, searching for lies, found only sincerity and something that looked like hope. "He was a good man," she said finally. "Not perfect, but good. He tried to do right even when it cost him. Her voice broke. "He was murdered 2 years ago because he wouldn't cooperate with a weapons deal, because he had principles. And the man who ordered the hit walked away like it was just another business transaction." Minjun's blood ran cold. Who ordered it? I can't. Alice Adiz, whoever you are. He gripped her shoulders. Who ordered the hit? She met his eyes, and in that moment he saw everything. The pain, the rage, the impossible weight she'd been carrying alone. Park Yi-sung. The world stopped. Park Yi-sung. His father's former partner. The man who'd taken over the Busan operations when the old man died. The man who... Oh God, Minjun breathed. Your father was the politician in Lagos, the one who refused to let weapons move through Nigerian ports. Yes, Alice's voice was hollow. Your father arranged it, Park Yi-sung executed it, and everyone I loved died. I didn't know. The words felt pathetic, useless. I swear to you I didn't know until after, and when I found out. You killed your father. He stared at her. How do you know that? Because I've spent 4 months investigating you, learning everything about you, trying to find proof you were the monster I needed you to be. Tears streamed down her face. But you're not. You're just a man trying to atone for sins that weren't even yours, and now I don't know how to hate you anymore. Minjun pulled her close again, his own eyes burning. My wife, he said quietly. She's been meeting with Park, hasn't she? Alice nodded against his chest. She's planning something, using me to get to him or using him to destroy me. I can't tell which yet. Both, probably. His voice was grim. She has her own reasons for wanting me dead. The politician he killed, the one with the daughter, was her father. She's Park Yi-sung's goddaughter, and she's been planning my destruction since the day we married. The full picture finally snapped into focus. We're all just pieces in their game, Alice whispered. Then let's flip the board. Minjun tilted her face up. Help me. Tell me everything you know. Every plan, every connection, every piece of leverage. We take them down together. If I do that, if I tell you everything, my cover is blown. I lose 4 months of work. I lose. You gain an ally, someone who has resources they don't know about, someone who's as motivated as you are. His thumb brushed away her tears. Someone who's falling in love with you despite every logical reason not to. Alice's breath caught. You don't mean that. I've never meant anything more in my life. You barely know me. I know you've been carrying grief alone for 2 years. I know you're brave enough to walk into the lion's den for revenge. I know you're strong enough to cry and smart enough to hide it. I know when you smile, really smile, it feels like the sun coming out. He leaned closer. And I know that when I kiss you, I forget I'm supposed to be numb. Minjun, help me destroy them, not for revenge, for justice, for your father, for the future where we're not all just prisoners of other people's hate. She should say no, should maintain cover, should stick to the plan. Instead, she kissed him, poured everything into it, grief and hope and desperate need, and the terrifying recognition that she was choosing him over everything else. When they broke apart, she whispered, Okay, but we do this my way, smart, careful, and when it's over. When it's over, we get to choose what comes next. You make it sound simple. It is simple, everything else is just complicated. He smiled, and it was real. The first real smile she'd seen from him. Now come on, you need to meet someone. Uncle was predictably furious. You told him everything. He paced the sub-basement, gesturing wildly. 4 months of work, blown in one afternoon because you, what, had feelings. He can help us, Alice insisted. He has resources we don't, access we need. He's compromised, emotionally invested. That makes him a liability, not an asset. Minjun, standing beside Alice, raised an eyebrow. I'm right here. I know you're here, that's the problem. Uncle rounded on him. You're not supposed to know any of this. You're supposed to be the unwitting tool we use to get close to Park. But now you have someone who actually wants to help. Minjun's voice was calm but firm. Someone who's been dismantling his father's empire for 3 years. Someone who has intimate knowledge of Park Yi-sung's operations. Someone who, he paused. Someone who loved his father until he realized his father was a monster, and then did what needed to be done. Silence settled over the room. Uncle finally sighed. Fine, but if this goes sideways... It won't, Alice said. You don't know that. No, but I know him. She looked at Minjun, and I trust him. Uncle shook his head but pulled up files on his monitors. All right, here's what we know. Your wife's affair isn't just an affair. It's a cover. She and Park have been planning a hostile takeover of your operations for 8 months. They're going to frame you for illegal weapons trafficking, plant evidence, bribe officials, manufacture witnesses. Once you're arrested, she divorces you, takes everything, and Park consolidates power. Minjun studied the documents with professional calm. Timeline. 2 weeks, maybe less. They're moving fast now. Why the rush? Uncle glanced at Alice. She nodded permission. Because they know we're here. Don't know who we are or what we want, but they know someone's been asking questions. They're accelerating to stay ahead of whatever threat they think we pose. So we accelerate faster. Minjun pulled out his phone. I have people in the police department, the prosecutor's office, politicians who owe me favors. If Park is planning to frame me, I'll make sure the evidence points back at him instead. It's not that simple, Uncle said. He's careful, very careful. Everything's compartmentalized, deniable. We need something concrete, something he can't talk his way out of. Then we'll get it. Minjun looked at Alice. How close can you get to my wife? Not close. She barely acknowledges the staff. What if you weren't staff? What if you were someone she needed? Like who? A dangerous smile crossed Minjun's face. Like her lawyer or her financial advisor, or, he thought for a moment, her therapist. Her therapist. She's been seeing someone for 6 months, told me it was for stress, but what if? He pulled up files on his own phone. What if we replace her actual therapist with someone we control, someone who can document her conversations, record sessions? Uncle's eyes lit up. That's actually brilliant. If we could get recordings of her discussing the frame job. Then we'd have evidence, admissible in court assuming we do it right. Minjun looked at Alice. Can you pass as a therapist? I have a psychology degree, and I'm good at reading people. Then that's your way in. I'll arrange for her current therapist to have a sudden family emergency. You'll be the replacement. She'll be suspicious. Let her be suspicious. As long as she talks, we're golden. They spent the next 2 hours planning. Details, contingencies, backup plans for the backup plans. By midnight, they had something resembling a strategy. Uncle finally left to make calls, set things in motion, leaving Alice and Minjun alone in the surveillance room. You should go, she said quietly. Get some sleep. Tomorrow's going to be complicated. I'm not tired. Neither am I, but what? She looked at him, really looked at him. But if I stay in this room with you much longer, I'm going to do something we might not be ready for. What if I'm ready? Are you, really? Alice stood, moving closer. Because once we cross this line, there's no going back. You'll be mine and I'll be yours, and when this all falls apart, and it will fall apart somehow, we'll both be destroyed by it. I'm already destroyed, have been for years. He reached for her hand. At least this way I'll have had something real, something worth being destroyed for. Alice studied his face, saw sincerity and desire and desperate hope. Saw a man offering her everything. Your office, she said finally. Not here, not surrounded by cameras and evidence of everything we're planning. My office it is. They made it halfway there before Minjun pushed her against a wall and kissed her like he was drowning, and she was air. Alice gasped, arching into him, her hands tangling in his hair as his mouth moved to her throat, her collarbone every exposed inch of skin he could reach. We should, she panted. Stop, anyone could see. Don't care. His hands slid under her shirt, warm against her skin. Need you, right now, can't wait. Office, now, before I forget how to walk. He pulled back enough to look at her, and the heat in his eyes made her knees weak. Then he grabbed her hand and practically ran. The office door barely closed before they were on each other again. His hands everywhere, her mouth desperate against his, clothes hitting the floor like they were on fire. Are you sure? He managed between kisses. Stop talking. Need to hear you say it." She pulled back just enough to meet his eyes. "I want you, all of you. Every broken piece, every secret, every part you think is too damaged to love. I want all of it." Something in his expression shattered and rebuilt itself simultaneously. Then he lifted her, carrying her to the leather couch, laying her down with a gentleness that contrasted with the desperation in his kiss. "Tell me if I go too fast," he murmured against her skin. "Tell me if—" "Min-jun," she cupped his face. "I'm not fragile, I'm not going to break, just—" her voice caught. "Just make me feel something other than grief, please." He kissed her slowly then, worshipfully, like she was something precious he'd been trusted to hold. His hands mapped her body with reverent intensity, every curve, every scar, every place that made her gasp and arch and forget her own name. She learned him too. The tattoos covering his back, dragons and phoenixes and Korean characters she still couldn't read. The scars from knife fights and bullet wounds. The sensitive spots that made his breath hitch. They took their time, building slowly, learning each other's bodies like languages they'd been desperate to speak. When he finally pushed inside her, they both froze. "Okay." His voice was strained with the effort of holding still. "More than okay." She wrapped her legs around him. "Don't stop, please don't stop." He moved then. Slow at first, letting her adjust, then deeper, harder, responding to the sounds she made, the way her nails dug into his shoulders. "You're so beautiful," he breathed against her ear. "So perfect. I don't deserve you, but I'm too selfish to let go." "Then don't let go, ever." They found a rhythm together, urgent and desperate and somehow tender all at once. Alice felt everything, grief and pleasure and connection, and the terrifying recognition that this wasn't just physical. This was emotional, spiritual, the kind of joining that changed people fundamentally. "Min-jun," she gasped as pressure built low in her belly. I can't." "Let go, I've got you." His hand slid between them, circling where they were joined. "Let go, Alice, give me everything." She shattered. Pleasure crashed through her in waves that seemed endless, pulling sounds from her throat she didn't know she could make. He followed seconds later, her name a prayer on his lips as he collapsed against her, both of them trembling and breathless. For a long moment, they just held each other. Hearts racing, skin cooling, reality slowly returning. "That was," he started. "I know. I've never—" "I know," she kissed his shoulder. "Me neither." He pulled back enough to look at her. "I love you. I know it's too soon, I know it's complicated, but I love you and I'm not taking it back." Tears burned behind Alice's eyes. "I love you too, even though it's stupid and reckless and going to end badly." "Maybe it won't." "It will. Everything I touch ends badly." "Then we'll end badly together." He kissed her softly. "But at least we'll have had this." They stayed like that, tangled together on the couch, neither willing to move, neither ready to face what came next. Outside the office, the house slept, unaware that everything was about to change. Unaware that in 2 weeks, blood would be spilled and secrets revealed and lives destroyed. Unaware that the woman cleaning their floors and the man running their empire had just declared war on the people trying to destroy them both. But for now, for these stolen hours, they were just Alice and Min-jun. 2 broken people who'd found each other in the dark. And that was enough. The end. If this story wrecked you, hit that like button. If you're crying, drop a comment and tell me which moment destroyed you. And subscribe to K-Stories by Aurora because we have more stories that will make you feel everything. Remember, the best love stories aren't about perfect people. They're about broken people who choose each other anyway. Until next time, keep believing in impossible love. It's the only kind worth having.